Welcome to the podcast where relationships, confidence, and determination all converge into an amazing, heartfelt experience. This is Speaking from the Heart.
Welcome back to episode number 140 of Speaking from the Heart. Today we have Kathy Baldwin, and Kathy's journey to become an expert in the field of coaching have been both deeply personal and universally resonant. It began with her own quest for healing and understanding. Confronted with life's adversities, she sought not just to cope, but to thrive. Through this pursuit, she uncovered the profound impact of universal laws on our everyday lives. She studied energy healing, psychology, and the timeless wisdom of these laws, applying them first to her own life. The transformation was undeniable. Stress became a catalyst for growth, and challenges turned into stepping stones toward success. This personal evolution sparked a passion to guide others on their paths. Kathy realized that her calling was to empower others to navigate their complexities and harness their innate potential, and facilitates transformative journeys, helping individuals and couples not only to resolve their issues, but to emerge stronger, more aligned, and with a clearer vision of their desired future. Now, you might have been noticing a pattern if you've been following me all along in these episodes that we've had recently, that we've had a variety of different types of coaches. But I find that today's episode's a little bit different with this kind of coach because Kathy's harnessing a lot of the different energies, passions, and excitements that we have had in other guests separately, but nothing quite like our interview today. I think that the question of, do you know who you are, is really what we try to answer in today's episode, while also understanding that following the rules, maybe even taking things into your own hands, might be the two different types of things that you have to ask yourself if you really want to stay complacent or you want to manifest a change that will allow you to move forward. But the fact that we talk about in this episode about systems and ways in which we can get to the root cause using those systems of the reasons why we are held back into pursuing what we should be doing really makes this special. I love that Kathy shares something about herself and so many other things in this episode that I think might even resonate with you, my listeners, unlike any other guest that we've had before. It doesn't mean that our stories are not important. Each of the things that I've even shared on this podcast are an important stepping stone towards the greater vision that even you yourself should achieve. But I think that putting it all together sometimes, especially with what our conversation is like today, makes a profound difference in how you're best able to move forward. But with that, let's go to the episode. All right, we're here with Kathy Baldwin. Kathy, thanks for sharing your heart with us today.
Joshua, thank you for sharing your heart with all of us too.
Oh, yes. I've been doing that for 140 episodes, and I'm so happy to have you on this very episode to be able to do that with you. So, Kathy, I have to ask you, starting out, why be a coach? I feel like it's always the age-old question when I have coaches on the show, but why be a coach? And that probably means telling a little bit about your story, but I would love for our audience to hear about it.
I'm going to answer the question and then I'm going to go backwards if you don't mind. Why be a coach?
Absolutely.
Because it's the next right step. It's the next step in my personal evolution. I was a normal woman growing up in the 70s, 80s, 90s. I followed all the societal rules about what I was supposed to be. I went into trying to be my authentic, empowered self while still trying to be everything the old world said I was supposed to be. And I got lost. And when you get lost and you start having trauma responses like people pleasing and self-sabotage and all of these other things, hitting glass ceilings, beating myself up, eventually, when you're too strong for too long, I broke. And I had a full-on breakdown that took me right down. And the medical system, I call it offering me pills and platitudes. So when I healed myself from everything that I'd been learning for over 40 years, I realized that not only was it irresponsible for me not to lend a hand for the next person who was in my situation, but it was also the way to keep me safe and secure, was to constantly be living this message by giving it away.
When you had been going through those tough times that you had, what would you say was one of the more difficult things that you had to overcome? And I'm assuming that maybe there were multiple things. And if there
Oh,
wasn't, you can correct me.
oh, there's always multiple things. One of the scariest for me was finding myself on the floor, not knowing who I was.
Mm.
I did not trust my brain. I did not know who I was. I was unable to comprehend the world around me, and I felt lost inside my own head. It was so scary to lose yourself when you've been so strong and you've been the one who's figured everything out, and all of a sudden you can't figure out how to wash your own face. That was one of them. The other was involving the medical system. I had gone to the doctors and asked them to help me. I was broken. I could not function. I couldn't stop crying. Seriously, I was one of those super women. I could do anything. And then all of a sudden, I couldn't do anything. And so when I went to the doctors, they sent me to a psychiatrist. And the psychiatrist sat me down and he had me list every single stressor, every trauma, everything that had happened to me in my life. And when I finished talking, he wrote on a piece of paper my pills, sent me the prescription, said, I'll see you in 4 months. He did not close Pandora's box. I left his office and I literally could feel myself spiral. Literally, I could feel myself losing my brain, and I was scared and I was reaching out to people. I had kept my darkness to myself. Nobody knew what was going on in my own head. I kept putting on this face that everything's okay, I got it. And nobody knew what was going on. So when I was reaching out for help, nobody knew that I was in trouble. And I found myself alone, and I found myself in the darkness. And next thing I know, the police had broken down my door, dragged me out of my home, and put me on a form in the hospital under a suicide watch. And I came, I came to, I could literally feel my brain start to come back. And I could watch third person that I was starting to retain and come back to who I was. And so when the psychiatrist came to evaluate me, I said, I'm okay now. And he said, what do you mean? And I told him this whole situation. And now I'm talking like myself and I'm normal again. And he says, you're not in trouble right now? I said, no, it's over. But that's what that did. That's what the medical system did. And when I went back to that psychiatrist, Josh, do you know what he said to me? When I told him what happened, he said,
kind of scared to find out.
what he said to me is, my role in your recovery is to give you the right pills. I am not here to help you on your journey. That's when I knew.
Man.
That's when I knew I was literally dealing with life and death. And if I didn't step in and take care of this myself, that I wasn't going to make it.
You know, hearing this made me feel like, first off, I'm very fortunate because I had been pushed into a therapist that really gave a damn and helped me when I started through my journey. And my listeners know a lot about what my journey had been since March of 2020. Even when COVID was happening, this was happening for me to get both feet firmly planted. But I thankfully wasn't pushed into a psychiatrist right away. But to hear you go through this, first off, this is what's wrong with society, is that we think that here's this magic pill, this will solve all your problems. And that's not the case. We're actual human beings that have feelings and emotions. I can only imagine what you felt like because of the pit of despair that I felt. I feel like what you just described is sort of what I felt. So I think it'd be really interesting to hear, for my listeners' sake, how did you actually crawl through all these different obstacles then? Because if the psychiatrist wasn't helping you and you were trying to figure this out yourself, what did you actually do?
Well, I have been a student of learning for 40 some odd years. I mean, I was one of those curious people that I wanted to know everything. So I was studying neurology, I was studying psychology, I was studying biology and quantum physics and anything and everything. I studied the stock market. I literally anything and everything I studied. And I had been in management for a very long time. So I sat down, I thought, okay, I cannot deal with the surface of this. That's pills and platitudes. I need to take my root cause analysis and I need to work backwards. And so I ended up becoming an energy healer because I realized that one of the things that I had learned from Dr. Bruce Lipton was that when we change the environment, we change our cells on a DNA level. And so I put that together with biology and everything. I thought, okay, so if our central nervous system is sending off hormones and chemicals in our body, I don't know if I mentioned this, but I suffered with fibromyalgia, adrenal fatigue, osteoarthritis. I've had 2 knees replaced. My body was wrecked. And so I was able to say, okay, if all of that is chemical based and it's energetically based, then I need to get this stuff out of my body. So I did all of the healing modalities, but then I did the energy healing that released it. And so I started just one step at a time, work on foundation, work on safety, then work on the next thing. And what that psychiatrist did was the greatest thing in the world for me because I was able to step back into my power. It was a long journey. It took a lot, but it has got me where I am today. It's what's the basis of my programs. It's the basis of everything I stand for now. But what would happen to somebody who didn't go like that? What if somebody got broken?
Yeah. And I think finding somebody that can help you, especially if you are on that other side where you are broken. I feel like it's a forest sometimes. It made me think of this like mind picture when you were describing it. It's almost like a forest walking around trying to find the end of the forest, to be able to find civilization, if you will. And it's not just the answers are somewhere out there, but yet as you're going along, you're finding ways in which you're adapting. You're finding ways in which you're growing. But I'm kind of curious then, going back to the very first question I asked you, why be a coach then? Because if you figured this out, you should be fine. You should be happy. You're now on the other side.
I
Why help
am.
others?
First of all, I have a duty and a responsibility now that I have learned that we are socially disempowered on purpose, that our whole societal system is designed to split us up, to break us. It's designed to keep us locked into a cycle of debt, of consumerism, of being workers for a system. My healing came about figuring out who I authentically was. And I like to describe it as a food processor. So you cannot make a food processor work until you get it clicked into place. Well, when I clicked into place, I had all the parts, but nothing was clicked into place. And as soon as it clicked into place and I had my full alignment and I was strong and I was the best version of myself I'd ever been in my life because I made conscious decisions and I made it happen. If I'm going to keep that to myself, what kind of person am I? If I'm not going to take this information and use it to help somebody else, to raise the vibration of our world when we are in such a critical, pivotal time, then that doesn't say a lot about the integrity of the quality of person I am or anybody else, because We are here for a purpose, every single one of us. And until we get into our authenticity, in my belief, until we get aligned with who we are and step out of societal roles and societal rules, we aren't giving our gift to the world. This is my gift to the world right now. This is the accumulation of everything that I have done and gone through in my life. And except for terrorism or things like that, there's not a lot of stress that I have not gone through. There's not a lot of trauma that I have not gone through. There's really very little that I have not been exposed to and learned and had to endure. So, what am I going to do with that? First of all, I have to share it. Second of all, the only way to keep me safe is to keep me in that cycle of healing. Give, receive, give, receive.
This is a perfect segue because I was learning so much about what this topic was growing up, and because I was dealing with so many different things too, being bullied as a kid, then dealing with what society had to say about what I needed to do financially, socially, culturally. So you wrote a book, and I love the title of this book. It's called Unlearn the Crap About Personal Success and Empowerment. So Kathy, I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about A, why you wrote the book, and B, how does that play into what you just shared with us? Do you give tips about how you expose that in your own life and help others to do the same?
Absolutely. I have a gift of being able to take very complex subjects and break them down and create metaphors or ways of people understanding. And so I go through the whole history of how we got where we are. So you understand that this is societal. This is part of a whole systematic change that must happen. It's not individual. And so when you understand it's not me, I didn't fail, there's nothing wrong with me, which is what we all walk around feeling like, then you now have the power to say, okay, how do I access all that? Well, the book came out of me creating my program, Drive Your Destiny, which is, it was funny because, sorry, I have to change subjects in order to finish that sentence, but I had tried to explain to somebody once that it would be like throwing a person out onto the road in a car that they had never learned to drive and had never driven it. And now you go figure it out. Well, we have driver's license. We have to go through training. We have all of these things that we need to prove that says we know how to operate that vehicle, how to land on the road, how to navigate. But we are thrown into our world and our lives without understanding the mechanics of our body, the language of our body, how our central nervous system works, how our brains get wired, how all of this comes about. So we're walking around in these bodies and feeling like a victim of our emotions instead of understanding that they are guiding us. When I finished doing the program, the book was just there. It just arrived. And it was funny because it was one of those moments where I didn't plan on writing a book. And one day it came to me, you're going to write a book and it's going to be called Unlearn the Crap. Okay. Guess that's what I'm doing.
Well, I think we're all doing that in one way or another. Let's face it, it is a lot of crap because of what we've been told is the right thing to do isn't necessarily the right thing to do for us. So do you talk about strategies as to how we find that authenticity in the book?
Yes. One of the biggest things after cutting the ties to disempowering your path and your belief and cutting the past off, because we're here in this moment, and if we're carrying baggage, get rid of it. It doesn't belong. It has no value in today except for what we take from it. So take what works. That's one of the things in the 12-step program. It says take what works and leave the rest. Well, if we're going to carry around things from our past that don't work and all they do is break us down, get rid of it. We clean our closets, we clean everything, but we don't clean our brains. We don't clean our hearts. So that's the first thing. The second thing is understanding that the universal laws are not airy-fairy concepts. They are actually the way we navigate in this world. And if you understand how they work, like you understand gravity, then you're not going to be beating yourself up against walls, because you're going to understand that those rules are there to guide you. So if you hit a wall, turn around and go the other way. And you can't know that until you know how the rules work. I love teaching this, because as soon as I tell people, they're like, I've never heard this in my whole entire life. How is this possible? And then the third thing, this will blow you away. When you begin a business or you work in a company, there's a vision, there's a mission statement, there's a value statement, there are rules of culture and everything. Does anyone ever been told you get to do that for yourself? What's your vision? What are your values? And if these are your values, these are the beliefs you need to have those values. And now you can create yourself, your identity, instead of it just haphazardly coming about by whatever life threw at you. You get to choose, you get to create, because we're here to create. And so boundaries become really easy when it's tied to identity, because it's either who I am or who am I not. There's no question about what you're going to do, because you have your identity centered. And we're not taught how to do that. We're not taught any of this stuff. We're taught how to get along in society. We're taught how to go through school and get the right answer. Or we're judged and we're told we're not conforming. And then there's something wrong with us because we don't fit into this little box. Well, thank God there's people who don't fit in the box, because that's what's evolving our world.
That last part, it was exactly what I was thinking, is that if we didn't have those people that were looking outside the box and like, oh, everybody's running around. I almost think of it as an ant farm. I don't know if you had one of these as a kid, but I did, where you have like this, oh, don't give me that look. Sorry, for my listeners, Kathy's like, nuh-uh, I'm not having ants near me. But no, seriously, if you think about it, ant farm, it was one of those green things, and then the ants you would put in with the sand, and they would burrow around. So they would be stuck in these confines. And I feel like we're those ants kind of walking around, burrowing around, trying to make our own path. But in reality, the freedom was outside that ant farm. So I want to be outside the ant farm, not inside of it. So sorry, not to make a disgusting reference, but that's really what I felt was really appropriate with saying that, is I think that we have to be thinking outside the box.
Absolutely, because we didn't build the box. It's not our box.
Yes. Yes.
So this came about through the Industrial Revolution, when they figured out how to automate, how to make things replicatable, how to make things conform and be repeatable. And so the only way to have that Industrial Revolution was to create a public school system that created people who were duplicatable and replicatable and being able to fit into that role. Well, that's not what human beings are for. Mm-hmm. We're not plastic.
Yes, we're not. We're human tissue, and we all learn in different ways because of the fact that we were all born uniquely different, for that matter, too.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You said something that struck me about learning how to drive and learning about riding around in a car, because I was thinking about the fact that I grew up in the age of driving in automatics. My first car was a 1990 Dodge Spirit, by the way. And my mom had it for so many years. I had it for so many years. We actually sold the car for about $200-300 to somebody else, which then that was their ultimate demise. But that car lasted forever. And for other people, they never learned an automatic. They learned stick shift. So how do you, especially since your coaching business, which, by the way, I didn't even mention yet what your coaching business is. It's RiseUp Coaching. That's the name of it, correct?
That's correct.
And so with your coaching with RiseUp, how do you distinguish between those that are stick shift and those that are automatic? In other words, how do you deal with people that are different based on what they've learned in the past. So how do you break that down to help find that purpose? I like to call it purpose, but you called it their mission, their vision, their values. I call it purpose, but same principle.
I don't. That's not my job. My job is to help them figure it out for themselves. I am not going to be part of that old system that says this is how you do it and these are the techniques and follow this system and do this breathing this way. No, we all have it inside of us. It's up to us to bring it out. And so I create safety. I create a place where people can authentically see themselves and reach in, because every time someone pulls out a little bit more of themselves by themselves, now they're learning how to have their own power.
That was a trick question, and I'm so glad that you caught right on, because I don't feel like our job is to lead people on a system of these are my steps. And it's so sad because I see other coaches do this, and I'm not saying that it's a bad thing, but when they are up in the front of a room or they're with a client and they're saying, you must do this or you're not a good person, I feel like that's where we have all this trauma that comes from churches, that comes from schools, that comes from bad people that just didn't have all their SHIT together, which I promised you I wasn't going to swear, but I had to spell it because it's so sad when people are just stuck in that system. And I feel that was what was my story for so long.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm so happy to hear that. You're like one of the first few people that have said, no, they're going to figure it out, but not on my terms. It's going to be on their terms.
Yeah. And that's why I'm a coach.
Yes.
That's why I have this vision that as we all step into our authentic selves, and you know, in our dreams, that's our soul talking to us. It's our soul guiding us. And so you may have it in your translation as a house or a car. But anyone who goes after the house or the car or whatever it is, and they get there and they think they're going to achieve what they want by getting it, they're always disappointed. Our soul talks to us in the language we know, which is for you to become who you're meant to be. This is the path you need to go. You need to go for the mansion. You need to go for the Mercedes, whatever it is, because that is going to get you to where your gifts come out. And the car, the house, all of it just becomes a reminder of who you've evolved into. And now you can take the next step and the next evolution and the next step, and it all becomes joyful.
It does. All of it is so important that when we go through, and I've said this a few times on the show too, about being in those valleys. Sometimes you have to also be climbing up those mountains, but nothing was given to us as being easy. So if things were given to you easily, you're going to have a difficult life. I feel like it's so hard to be able to achieve when you don't have all those necessary tools. I kind of think of it as your toolkit, your tool belt, having it around you. You need to have the right tool for the right time.
Can
But
I
go ahead.
interrupt first because I want
Yeah.
to challenge something you just said?
Go ahead.
Are you okay with that?
Absolutely. Please do.
Okay, so for me, it's not about tools, it's about understanding and knowledge. We live in a universal law of rhythm. That's one of the 12 universal laws. Rhythm states that everything is constantly in motion. Everything has cycles. Everything has a rhythm. So we have seasons. We have cycles of day and night. We have sleep and wake cycles. Every part of our life is in cycle. So many times people think that when they're at a different part of the cycle, that there's something wrong and they need to fix it. Well, what if you had this belief that you were never supposed to sleep? you would fall apart and you would break. It's part of the cycle. So when we are evolving, when we're building, when we're growing, sometimes we're going to be at the opposite end of creation. Think about it like a figure eight or the infinity sign, which is how my hands are moving every time I talk about this. But if you understand that there's rhythms and movement, and you can look at where you are, and you don't have to beat yourself up that you're not there. It's like, oh, I'm in winter, I'm in fall, I'm in sleep cycle, I'm in rest and rejuvenate. That means that you need to do something, learn something, take care of something in that moment, and then you'll go to the next step. The seasons will come.
Yeah, I can see that. And in being able to live in that moment, I think that it's okay just to be able to embrace it. I think you're right. I think that we're often are built. So yeah, I have to withdraw my toolbox comment or my tool belt comment because of that. So yeah, thanks for correcting me. I like that.
That's okay. I would love to have a whole conversation with you one day about all of the universal laws and how they work because it's so fascinating.
Yeah, I would love that. I've had a few guests on the show that have talked about the universal energies, the universal team. Just that whole subject matter is something that's always a fascination to me.
I bring it back into science and biology so that it's not airy fairy, it's not woo woo.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, you don't want it to be that. Absolutely. Because it'll be, well, wait, what are you saying? So we don't want that either. You want to bring it to reality. There's one last question I have for you, which is something that is on your website that really stood out to me. It says, and this is talking about the Unlearn the Crap book that you have written. Part of it says, your discomfort is a glorious sign of growth, expansion, and possibilities.
Yeah.
Are you still living in discomfort, Kathy? Are you trying to live a life where you're continuing to grow and expand and have unlimited potential and possibilities? What
Absolutely.
is it that you're working on?
Oh, what am I not working on? I have so much going on because the more that I have developed and created out of myself, the more I find I have and I want to do. So I'm working on the next two books. I'm writing a book called Unlearn the Crap about stress and burnout because that is our biggest sign that we are out of alignment. And so many times people think just deal with the stress. Well, no, you got a root cause there. Let's get to the root cause because that stress is a signal. It's your body talking to you. So I've got that I'm working on right now. I'm part of a docu-series. I'm part of Voices of 100 Women program. I'm working on a TV show that I'm going to be doing. But my passion is this Drive Your Destiny program where I can help other people bring their joy, their bliss, their gift to the world. Because I don't know if I should say this to a man, but I'm going to say it anyways.
Oh, you're not just saying it to a man, you're saying it to my listeners, so feel free.
Okay. Well, hopefully nobody gets offended by this. We've lived in a patriarchal society for so long where everything's been about control and power and taking people down. And it is time for women and femininity, which is one of the universal laws of gender, and bringing balance back to the world, where we're back to creativity and innovation, and we're back to all of those amazing things that make us human. Because AI is coming, it's here. Automation is happening. We are going to be out of jobs that are repeatable and can be done by a computer, but a computer will never come up with creativity and innovation and all of those things that make us human. So that gives us the opportunity right now that to seize this moment and really all come to our best version. Imagine how the world would change if every single person was living their best life and just giving their gifts to the world.
I'm glad you said that, by the way, because I agree with you. I'm just going to leave it at that because that's such a strong statement to end with. Kathy, I want to give you the last few minutes. We're out of time, but before we wrap up, how can people reach out to you? If they're interested in being coached with RiseUp coaching with you, how would they be able to get in contact? How can they find out more information? How can they pick up Unlearn the Crap, which I'll also put a link in the episode notes, by the way, with the book, but maybe you have another alternative that maybe they can provide too. So I'm going to give you the last few minutes to do all that.
Thank you very much. Okay, so Unlearn the Crap can be bought at Amazon. It's in every currency 22.22. That is a numerical number that means that you are on the right path, that you are doing the right next step for you. So it's a numerical number that's very passionate to me. The Kindle version is $2.22, so nobody cannot afford it. Go and learn about what your individual power is. So that's on Amazon. In my coaching program, you can find me at riseupcoaching.io. I have my website, unlearnthecrap.com. There's lots there as well. On all social medias, whether you find me through Kathy Baldwin or Rise Up Coaching or Unlearn the Crap, any of those hashtags or whatever, you'll find me. And I believe there's a gift in the show notes that you're going to share, that I have a gift for everyone, which is a quiz. And that quiz is to help you figure out how at risk you are for burnout. Because one of my missions is, we have too many success stories of people who have hit rock bottom and lost everything and then found their success. I don't think we all need to lose everything and hit rock bottom to hit our success. If I can catch someone halfway through and say, "Oh, look, you're about to fall," and they catch, and now we heal, that's my dream. So I do have that quiz. I wish someone had been able to catch me before I fell, but I accept that that was my journey. But I am here because I'm here to help people, and I want them to reach out to me.
I hope they do, because I've always said on this show, although I'm a coach, not all coaches are created equally. So if you're attracted to what Kathy has said today, I highly encourage you to reach out to her. I will have the free gift that Kathy's mentioned also in the episode notes. So you can go check that out, along with her book, along with her website, along with her social media. Oh, I ran out of breath, Kathy.
I have one question for you, Josh, if you don't mind.
Absolutely. Before we go, yes.
How many coaches do you have?
Good question.
Because coaches need coaches. We all need help.
We do. And I've been fortunate enough that when I started, I had a coach by the name of Gary, and Gary had to move on to other projects, but Gary was an instrumental start for my business. And what's funny is that although I wouldn't say I have a quote unquote coach, the coaches that I have are actually the family, friends, and other people that have seen what my vision is and have continued to surround me and say, "I see the worthiness in you, Josh, and I want you to keep doing what you're doing, and here's how I can help." Those have been some amazing people, but even now, I'm in this point in my life where I definitely am looking for a coach and wanting to be lifted to a whole new level myself, because even for that matter, coaching is so important to be able to do. So that's a great question. I appreciate you asking that.
Well, I want to take away the negative association with a coach, because every superstar in every part of the world has coaches. They have coaches for every part of their lives. So that is one of the things that we need to unlearn the crap about, is that we're supposed to go it alone, that we're supposed to know everything. And if we don't, there's something wrong with us.
Absolutely. And I appreciate you saying that, because I feel that we need to reclaim the fact that everyone deserves and is entitled to having a coach. I think that we often think that we can't afford it, or we're not privileged enough to have it, or I'm already doing fine. Why would I need somebody? Well, you might be surprised what you find out. And Kathy, for all those reasons, thanks for being on Speaking from the Heart. I hope that people reach out to continue to break the mold, to continue being their authentic selves. And I appreciate you being your authentic self on this podcast episode today.
Thank you.
I want to thank Kathy again for being part of the show. And even as I continuously say on this show about why I have the guests that I have, one thing remains clear. No matter what you might think about what we have been through in our lives, no matter what you try to do to achieve what that best vision is of your life, becoming authentic in your own nature through relationships, confidence, and determination, which go all the way back to the very beginning of this podcast, remember that following the rules might not always be your best friend. What we're trying to gain from this and what we're trying to gain from the obstacles that we might face in our life mean that we have to understand that breakdowns are okay. It doesn't mean that we have to be feeling this inadequacy or feeling like we have to massively medicate ourselves. Those are the jobs of the psychiatrists and therapists that might need to help you in the greatest time of need. That's what makes therapists and psychiatrists different from, say, coaches, mentors, people that are there that want to manifest the dreams and aspirations of what you're trying to achieve. These two intersections sometimes are great, and we've had many guests like Jenny Jansen recently talking about these aspects in her own therapy and coaching practice. But Kathy's approach is like any other type of opportunity that you can have. It's allowing you to see that the energies around you, the people you surround yourself with, and the opportunities that present themselves all accumulate into opportunities of finding out that overarching question of who you are. If you keep that darkness, that feeling of being lost around you, of course it's not going to pan out very well. Kathy even talked about it today, about why it's so important to not be in that space. Sometimes taking things into your own hands, even if you feel that it might not be the best way to move forward, can still help you build that value, helping to figure out what are the best ways to move it forward. Now, let's be real. Hiring someone to help you along the way, to be that partner in crime by your side, which I think coaches can be, can help you get to the root cause analysis that you're trying to conduct of why you're going through some of the things that you're going through, to help you to better gain clarity and focus into a positive direction. It's not necessarily a pep talk every single time like somebody else, like a football coach or a baseball coach might do, especially if the game is going very badly for your team. This is about figuring out, are the things that you're doing working, and are there better ways to approach it? Dr. Jim Salvucci, Navi Bliss, some of the more recent guests have even talked about a variety of different ways. Whether it's just doing it to finding love, all of them have unique perspectives. To even figure out how we get through this breaking of the cycle means that we have to split those ideas that we have about ourselves. What kind of person do you want to be? How does that align with where you actually want to achieve? Figuring out the metaphor of life, as Kathy would even describe it as, helps us to understand where we need to get to. It's almost like driving a car. We know that we need to get out at certain stops in order to stretch our legs, especially if it's a long road trip, to get to where we need to be. Especially when I've even talked about in a previous episode of that cross-country adventure, which I encourage you to go check that out because it is a lot of opportunity for us to take pit stops and get to know each other. But now let's focus on ourselves. Let's focus on what might work if we just are able to split the atom. If we can just understand how that works, how we can get that manifestation of the energies that we have surrounding ourselves, which even past guests, even last year on our show, like Bree Didino has talked about, can help us to move towards that positive direction. If you figure out how to clear your heart and how to clear your mind of all the toxicity, and you choose what your boundaries are, I know that you can do this. I know I can believe in you. But you have to find the right system that's paired with the safety to create that manifestation. Now I have to pause and even talk about why that's so important from the context of what even Kathy has shared and what I have shared even in previous episodes. It's not just about understanding how that all connects together. It's not about saying things that are terrible about another person and making them feel like crap, and even saying to yourself that you need to distance yourself from that person. Maybe they have a point. That's one thing yet on this show that we haven't really explored, which is why is it that that person is saying some of the nasty things that they're saying? Now, truth be told, maybe some of the things that they are complaining about, that they are discussing, are not healthy manifestations. Maybe they're not productive overall. Because we have the things that we have going on in our lives, the reactions that we're receiving might be valid. But the point is that if you're not able to distinguish between what is really fact and fiction, which we have even talked about what is a story and what is really a fact, how are you ever going to figure out that growth? You might try to do it, but is it really working? If you've been hitting roadblocks over and over again, you need to figure a way that is much better than what you're working on today. And that is why developing a system, regardless if it's something that has been well established or if it's something else, can make such a profound difference in how you're able to best move forward. It's how you're able to achieve some of the best things that you have yet to achieve in your entire life. It's allowing you to have your soul guide you into the direction that you want to achieve, where you really want to go in your own car that you're driving. But let's face it, that car will break down. Your soul will be depressed. There will be things that will happen in your life that will challenge the status quo, that will knock you off your feet. Those are the ebbs and flows, or the rhythms and cycles, as Kathy had put it, that put us into a different type of cycle. Something that we normally try to overcome, but we can't quite do on our own. Nothing might be able to be worked through because you either have the wrong impression as to what you might think is the right thing to do, or you're just completely off because someone has pushed you off to the side and has not made you the best version of yourself. It is about getting to the root cause. It's about building that strength, that consistency, that passion, that ongoing accountability that you can self-check yourself, which ideally that is where we're ultimately going in this conversation. But what if you don't have the best support system? I've been blessed for over a year and a half to have a variety of different people that have come through my business, and I have seen it all. From the people that had to reach deep inside of themselves to find the courage to divorce people, remove themselves from family members, or even overcome stereotypes or thoughts that are negative in nature to realize that they have gifts to share to this world. But sometimes that car that they've been driving in needs to be tuned up. Sometimes the soul that we have inside of ourselves needs to be revisited. Even though they have been following the rules of what they thought society asked them to do, society told them a completely different story instead and led them astray. That is where a coach can help provide guidance and clarity. But we have the ultimate responsibility, if I dare say so myself, being a coach myself, that we need to be careful about how we go about that process. We need to be careful about how we address ourselves, how we create that best version, how we guide our clients. Because if we lead them astray, not only are they going to be mad at us, we will be disappointed ourselves. That is where training comes into play. I don't know about you, but we've had so many different people share their stories over a course of this whole entire process. It's been over a year of many different guests, many different perspectives that I've provided over the course of 140 episodes to get to where we're at. Has it really helped you? Has it shown you that you don't have to walk in the darkness all by yourself anymore? Has it helped you to realize that you can split yourself from those thought patterns, those manifestations of negative energy, the people that have been the past version of yourself, the things that you idealize or idolize for that matter, into metaphors and positive affirmations and transformations that allow you to lead into a life that could either create multi-million dollars of fame and fortune, or even having better relationships with people that you always wanted. But it all started with each and every one of my guests about having a system, and that system identifies with who they are. If you don't know what that system looks like, reach out to me. Reach out to my guest. Reach out to any one of my guests for that matter. There are plenty of episodes that there are plenty of people that have gone through even trials and tribulations and are be happy to share what they have been through. But do me a favor today. Stop putting it off, because it is your soul. It is the rhythm that you beat to on your drum. It is the way in which you start your car. If you keep on running that car for many, many miles and don't look under the hood every once in a while, are you really doing yourself a service of helping yourself to feel appreciated, loved, and valued, both physically and mentally? What are you waiting for? Are you waiting for that breakdown to happen? Are you waiting to feel sad and all alone? Or maybe you just need that extra push because you are doing the right things. Regardless of where your stance is at, regardless of what your background is, just know that you have everything, and everything I mean, to make this happen. Just like my guest Kathy has. Because regardless of any universal laws, regardless of any transformation, regardless of the things that you take in your own hands, I promise you, there are greater rewards that lie ahead. Those are the treasures, regardless of whether you think it's gold or not, that will help you become the best version of yourself in the personal and professional struggles that you go through, not just on a daily basis or a weekly basis or a monthly basis or even a yearly basis, but in any time period that you can think of. It will help you see who you can ultimately become. A person that is loved, respected, cared, and appreciated in more ways than one. Thanks for listening to episode number 140 of Speaking from the Heart, and I look forward to hearing from your heart very soon.
Thanks for listening. For more information about our podcast and future shows, search for Speaking from the Heart to subscribe and be notified wherever you listen to your podcasts. Visit us at www.yourspeakingvoice.biz for more information about potential services that can help you create the best version of yourself. See you next time.